Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and welcome to Command Power, the show in which we discuss all things Magic the Gathering with a focus on Commander. And today we have another episode in our Spoiler Spotlight series in which I talk about, well, spoilers and tell you what my thoughts are on them. But before that, just a quick reminder to click subscribe if you enjoy my videos. We're well on our way to 1 million subscribers and your support means everything to me. And today we're going to be talking about Dimir Strandcatcher. For 2 colorless and 2 hybrid Dimir, it's a creature fairy rogue 3/3 with flying, and whenever you attack, surveil X, where X is the number of opponents being attacked, and at the beginning of each end step, if 3 or more cards were put into your graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield this turn, draw a card. So this one seems really cool and one that's definitely worth highlighting for a couple of different reasons. For starters, it's a decently statted flying creature that gives you immediate value as long as you have something to attack with on board. That's already pretty solid. Surveil is obviously really good, particularly if you're playing with the graveyard, and if you can surveil 3 with this, then it's absolutely incredible. Of course, that's not always going to be the case, and sometimes you're just going to be surveilling 1 or 2, which is fine, but obviously not quite as good as surveilling 3. That being said, you're getting the value immediately, so that gives this kind of effect pseudo haste, and what makes it even better is that the second ability can trigger immediately as well, and that ability is where the real meat of the card resides. So at the beginning of each end step, and do note it says each end step including your opponents, you can draw a card as long as you've had 3 or more cards put into your graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield. That wording is really good and really interesting because of course this works very well with surveil, which is what's intended by the card having the surveil mechanic on it, although that does mean that you need to bin all 3 cards you're looking at. But even better, if in my opinion, is the fact that this works with both mill and discard. There's a lot of decks in Dimir colors that want to be self-milling, such as Muldrotha for example, or the new Sultai commanders from Fallout. They are all interesting in putting stuff into your graveyard, and milling 3 cards is pretty trivial in those kind of decks, so this feels like it's going to trigger a lot in them. Not only that, but being able to trigger it during your opponent's turn means that you can really draw some serious amount of gas off of this 4-drop. Self-discard is also a strategy that can be pretty useful in Commander, particularly with certain commanders, but it's obviously not quite as widespread as self-mill. That being said, this can also be useful there if you have multiple ways to get cards into the graveyard, and you have a way to maybe recur them so that you can discard them again on the next turn, or something like that. A card that works fairly well with this is Doom Whisperer, which allows you to surveil at any time, so with it out, you can do it during your opponent's turn. You will have to pay 4 life each time, but that is going to get you an extra card, and if you're drawing 3 or 4 extra cards per turn cycle, you're probably in a pretty good spot, so you have ways to get your life back. There's been a ton of support for surveil in recent sets, so I think this is a really solid addition to that kind of archetype. Of course, the main issue is that this is probably going to end up being quite expensive because it hasn't been opened very much at all, just like the rest of the cards from Ravnica Clue Edition, which could be unfortunate if this ends up being a pretty solid role player in those kind of decks. So my final opinion on this is that it has a lot of positive things going for it, including the stat line, the fact that it provides value immediately if you have any sort of board, and the fact that it can draw you multiple cards turn after turn after turn if you're in the right kind of deck, such as Muldrotha or the Wise Mothman. And finally, if you are interested in this card, I would recommend picking it up as soon as possible because these are fairly likely to be quite expensive in the mid to long term. So there you have it. Those have been my thoughts on this new spoiler. What do you think about this card? Please let me know in the comment section below. I read all comments and respond to all of them too. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click like or subscribe. It really helps the channel. And until next time, take care.